Our second reading today is another one of Jesus' parables, trying to teach us something about the kingdom of heaven. It's Matthew 25, verses 1 through 13, the parable of the 10 bridesmaids. Let us listen for God's word. It's from the Gospel of Matthew. Then the kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 young women took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them. But the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him." Then all those young women got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are gone out." But the wise replied, "No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You had better go to the dealers and buy some for yourself." And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the other young women came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake. Therefore you know neither the day nor the hour." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise you, O Christ. As part of our faith, the expectation that Christ will return, will have his second coming, is central. Expectation of his return was certainly true for the first century Christians. They expected it to occur at any time during their time. Even if we view it differently, even if we anticipate his coming is certainly true now, how do we live that out in a very real issue. How do we live our lives with the full expectation of Christ's return? How can we be prepared? This is not a simple cut and dry question. Another way to pose the question is, will we be like the foolish bridesmaids, or will we be like the wise bridesmaids? And what does foolish and wise even really look like? This is not just about preparation for our personal lives. On an even larger scale, we see this balance of the now and the future play out clearly in our governments, local and national, and in our church governance as well. What is wise and what is foolish, personally and corporately? For example, how do we balance the allocation of funds for immediate needs versus laying groundwork for the future? Should we tax ourselves for those new roads and bridges, or should we add some more patches to the asphalt and a little more riffraff around the eroding bridge appointments? Do we really need new fire trucks, or can we just take our chances with the old ones? More heart-wrenching, can we afford to deal with the immediate needs of those in our community with drug addictions when we need to have more schools for our kids? If we think Jesus is coming, what do we do or not do in preparation? The parable of the 10 bridesmaids is, at its heart, a parable about being prepared, being ready. The parable begins, like many of Jesus' parables, by announcing a comparison to the kingdom of heaven. The will be like, with its future tense, indicates the eschatological end times orientation. This is part of a series of parables Jesus uses, all of which are to help us get a glimpse of the kingdom to come. No one parable stands alone. All are to help us visualize and prepare for the kingdom. This parable asks us to envision 10 bridesmaids who are waiting the bridegroom in order to attend the wedding banquet. Now, do not get lost in the missing details. You do not need to know the exact location, what dresses they were wearing, or the time of the wedding party. You need to, you want to know these things, but these are details that are inconsequential to the meaning of the parable, so just don't go there. Instead, the story totally focuses on two categories of bridesmaids: the foolish and the wise, and how they are able to deal with the delay of the bridegroom's arrival. The main point seems to be lack of preparedness of the foolish bridesmaids, who imprudently are caught off guard with insufficient oil for their lamps. Not enough oil to allow them to see their way to meet the groom in the middle of the night. Conversely, the wise bridesmaids not only take their lamps filled with oil, but also an extra flask of oil just in case. Their exemplary preparedness is the main lesson of the parable. Of course, symbolically, we generally understand the parable is to refer to the second coming of Jesus, who in Matthew's late first century time had been expected to return quickly, but had not yet occurred. 2 millennia later, we're still waiting. Staying ready all the time for us as individuals, for us as a church, is not an easy task. The parable implies that some of the bridesmaids are foolish in their lack of preparation, and implies they should have known better. Now, elsewhere in Matthew, Jesus says, "Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." But let's be realistic. At this point, few among us are interested in casting aside all our long-term planning because Jesus might arrive later today or tomorrow. Alternatively, few of us are willing to say, no, we can bank on his coming, his not coming anytime soon. Therefore, it's hard to know how to stay ready for an uncertain future and what to do to take care of it right now. What is foolish or wise is rarely as simple as keeping enough oil on hand. A factor that makes it difficult for us to interpret this parable today is our kind of embedded acceptance of Jesus' promise of abundant life. The assumption of abundant life works against us in a couple of ways. First, the tale seems to be one of scarcity, in which there are not enough oil to share. And furthermore, those who with oil choose to take care of themselves instead of doing the expected Christian thing and at least working out or working for some common solution. The parable rubs against the Christian inclination to help one another, whether they're wise or foolish. We help one another. Surely, you protest, they could consider other options. Light cast by a flame is not a zero-sum game. If the oil could not be shared, surely the lights could have been shared, right? Why not bend the rules a little bit and have 2 people per lamp? Or if that's not possible, do we read this parable as a call, as a license to save ourselves at the expense of others? That's not a comfortable interpretation either. Perhaps what we really need to do is stop and acknowledge that the parable is about being ready, not about generosity, not about distribution of resources, Staying focused on being ready can help prevent or maybe mitigate interpretations that are self-serving or congratulatory about our own oil supplies. Just hear the message, be ready. Now, if our first concern came from implications of scarcity, a second concern is that the text concern that we can evoke is fear. Fear of not being ready and therefore of being left out. Left going to the store to buy oil when the others are admitted to the ultimate party. As Amy Mocio says, Matthew's heavy emphasis on judgment in its concluding chapters does little to ease anxieties. For better or worse, Jesus uses fear to make his point, be ready. As we look at our contemporary lives, your orientation, my orientation, fear is often a motivating factor. We buy home insurance and car insurance for fear of some unseen accident. We take multivitamins and get up early to exercise to prevent health problems. Even a study in 2016 on U.S. gun ownership by researchers from Harvard and Northwestern showed that fear of other people was the driving force behind record gun sales in recent decades. On the other hand, fear of the unknown future can be helpful, can help us make smart decisions and plan for contingencies. Insurance is not a bad thing, but fear can still be debilitating and isolating if we become consumed by anxiety, afraid of all that could happen if we are caught unprepared. The fearful questions can penetrate our lives, even when the consequences are modest and the choices are there. Are the choices we make to support the Central Ohio Food Bank or to salt some money away for our own rainy days? Or to install solar panels even if the economics is not quite right? Are these choices one that demonstrate wisdom and faithfulness or foolishness? Which kind of bridesmaid are we, wise or foolish? How can I personally or we as a church know if we are in the wise category and ready for Jesus? Well, take heart. The judgment discourse in these chapters of Matthew do not stand alone. Even within Matthew itself, we need to only look back at the Sermon on the Mount, back in chapter 5. This can help us balance this fear of judgment with the Beatitudes. You are blessed. You are blessed in many ways. With this balance, we can come to the conclusion that being ready is an ongoing way of life more than a fixed checklist of do's and don'ts. Being ready is an orientation to the world that looks for Jesus in the stranger and is ready to respond to the neighbor in need. Jesus urges his followers, keep awake and be ready for his appearance at any time. Then he immediately tells he is present in each person who is hungry and thirsty and naked or in prison. Being ready means living a full life of humble service to others, of mercy and compassion, of peacemaking and justice. Challenging though it may be, that is being ready. Let's think for a moment about modern parallels to this parable. Now, I know some of you watch Netflix movies. I know you do that. And there are sitcoms and the romantic comedies there. Whatever streaming service you use these days, the absent bride or absent groom is a common plot line. You can remember the picture of the groom standing in front of the church, awaiting for his missing bride, while the congregation snickers and speculates. Is she caught in the freeway in traffic, or what? Or alternatively, the bride is in her fluffy gown, as nervously paces as the best man chases down the runaway groom. Did he not recover from the bachelor party? Did he get cold feet? In his parable, Jesus does not tell us why the groom is delayed. I know you can use your imagination and all the speculation your imagination can lead to. Maybe the bridesmaids were there, had lots of options. Moving this parable into the context of our day, it can be hard to maintain hope for the second coming when all wrong one day will be made right. Our days, our times are dominated by a sense of delay of the reign of God, an expected delay. In a world that seems dominated by injustice and suffering, problems can seem insurmountable and impossible to solve. We may become paralyzed by the overwhelming need around us. We become simply exhausted and ineffective. We may lose track of being prepared and being faithful disciples. It seems a lot more complicated than just having lamp oil. What are we to do? Take heart, says theologian Nancy Bedford. She suggests that our communities discern together how to make little moves against destructiveness, imaginative and creative efforts, even as small, that follow God's leading. Our little moves together as a community of faith then accumulate. Together, we become the hands and feet of Christ. In such discernment and response, we foster new hope. We become the wise, and we can help transcend feelings of despair and defeat of the foolish. One final learning from the bridesmaids for you to consider. The wise bridesmaids brought flasks of extra oil. In their wisdom, they also brought hope that though the groom might be delayed, he would still arrive. In the end, they were ready not only for the wedding, but for the wait. Wisely ready for both the wait and the wedding. Amen.